right. It is Wednesday, November 17th. We got Thanksgiving staring us in the face next week, and we give thanks the Washington football team actually played a complete football game, upset the world champions, and Riggo's going to break down game fill and all that. Here's Riggo.
Oh, yeah, Todd, you're onto something there. Before we jump into the game, though, a couple things going on. Actually, this is the penultimate Wednesday before Thanksgiving, as you said. I'm going today to go do our Thanksgiving shopping.
Oh,
I got to go get the meal, get it. You know, I'm wondering if I'm going to get out to where I'm going, and because there was a rumor that the turkeys were going to be limited or whatever.
big shortage.
Yeah, is
Very
that you've heard
expensive,
that?
too, absolutely, and expensive.
Maybe we're having hamburgers. I'm not above making hamburgers. But I mean, I guess it could all change. But anyway, so I've got that ahead of me today. A couple things. One, I want to talk about. Do we have a little? Could we show?
Yes.
Yes. I got a picture of this sent to me by a friend of mine who lives out in Centralia, Kansas, where I grew up and played football, and he sent me. Obviously, Tim is a very accomplished photographer, I guess, because he probably put a what do you call that
That's on a drone.
a drone and took this is a photograph, believe it or not. Centralia is a town of about 500 people. This is their football field. Actually, it's Riggins Field. What am I talking about? Give myself a little street cred here, right? Yeah. But I was dumbfounded. Let me say this. It didn't look like that when I played at Riggins Field. Well, it wasn't Riggins Field.
Did you even have grass then?
Centralia. I mean, well, actually, technically, you'll get a kick out of this. When I was just really young, if you're looking at this screen, the right-hand corner down there, that was a baseball field, as a lot of fields back in those days were. I played on plenty of them. The baseball field, just like you see in the NFL.
Well, you had it with
Philadelphia.
you had it in Shea Stadium, didn't you? Or
yeah, Shea. RFK until they completely converted it, but way back in the early days, I'm sure they.
Yeah, it was
until the Senators left or whatever. So yeah, and I remember when they actually they decided to extend it because they had some other property there. And they extended, there was a practice field on beyond that, and at that time they went in and what I recall, they didn't resod the field, but they put a bunch of sprigs of sod, I guess, and then it all grew in. But that's like 60 years ago.
Wow.
Maybe 65, 70, because I was probably 4 or 5 years old. I still remember all the men in town came down and they did that. So that started way back when now. Now they used to have, for the yard markers, they had tires, and they would cut them in a way that then they would turn them inside out, and they would set in a circular fashion, so they could set on, the tire was cut, so you had two sides of it, and you would set down, like an arch.
Yeah,
and then they
like
would
a half moon.
Yeah, and then they would write the yard marker on whatever it was.
Now that I've never seen.
The 10, the 20, the 30. Hey, we
could go to Michelin. It's Goodyear.
We were never thought of that, but we were very innovative back then. This just completely blows me away, and it was. I mean, I was stunned that this field looks like that.
It's good looking
when
field.
I was out there when they dedicated the field, they hadn't kicked it up to this level, which was back in 2012, I believe, or 13. I can't remember. That's when it became Riggins Field.
And the same track. There's a track around.
Yeah, but now the track back in the old days, because I think that's an asphalt track, which personally I wouldn't care to run on. But maybe they put some, they're also
tartan that rubber.
That may be a rubberized asphalt, which that would be, that's borderline, but it's still not the same as what some of the tracks are today. Back in the old days, though, it was dirt. So if you got a little rain, track meet was all. But dirt, if it's done right, is pretty fast.
I gotta say,
if it's packed,
unless you're a mudder, the times are going to be a lot slower.
Be real slow. Then you have to put on a completely different kind of shoe. Maybe you can run barefoot.
And blinders.
But yeah, I want to give some, what do they call that, a shout out to Centralia High School for their football field. That's
Riggins, is it Riggins Field, Riggins Stadium? What do we call it?
I think, do you see, Todd? That will not seat,
crowd.
That will not seat 50,000 people, Todd. I don't think.
How about 500? If all 500 people from the town,
they got to get like people from the county. In the old days, now there's another thing. The ladies who had sons that were playing, and my mom obviously was one of them. You'd see in the end zones. My dad and whoever else in town would, in the morning before they went to work, they would go down, drive the car down, and park it in the end zone. And so the ladies would sit in the end zone.
Seems kind of dangerous.
Because you could run the car and stay warm. So they were actually that probably
Midwestern sensibilities right there, people.
Centray was already ahead of the suites that would come along much, much later. Like I said, the tire markers, the suites that they had, the suites on wheels.
That's the first drive-in football field.
Yeah. I'm just
You
saying.
put the speakers, maybe order a Sonic cheeseburger or something.
Yeah, well, the man had to do what he had to do. And, of course, then they had the Ag Boys. They had the pickup truck, and they had the popcorn machine in the back of the pickup truck, and they drive that down there. So you had the concession stand, and then you had – but you could only – I don't know what they had there. I think you just get soda and coffee in the concession stand, maybe a bag of chips. Now, if you wanted popcorn, fresh-made popcorn, the Ag Boys are all – the FFA, that's what they were all about. So,
Future Farmers of America?
yeah, that's it. Good. Excellent.
Thank you.
Todd.
Thank
I'm
you.
impressed.
Got a little bit of...
I always wanted one of them jackets. I'm thinking I'm going to go look them up online, get me an Ag jacket.
Oh.
Wear it proudly. Although I'm not exactly.
It's like, hey.
A real farmer would look at
It's
me.
illegal.
And as I would look at a real farmer who stepped on a football field and go, tisk, tisk, no, away with you. They would look at me and go, son,
Son,
you
let me
are
see those
not a
hands.
farmer. You may be a football player, but you're not.
Let me see those hands.
Well, I could give them the calloused hands, but I mean, as far as knowing what you're doing on a tractor and planting the way they, well, even back in those days, but even today, I mean, maybe it's easier. I don't know, because I don't understand computers. But they actually, and I'm getting too far afield here because I want to get into something else, but do you realize they actually count the seeds per acre nowadays? They set the planter at how many seeds per acre, like you're planting soybeans or you're planting corn. They'll know exactly how many seeds they put in, like 20,000 seeds per acre.
Yeah, technology. Technology.
It's like, whoa.
So we're not just sitting there going, hey, we're seeds over here.
That was the Riggo farm, Riggins Farms. That's the way we planted it back in those days. Listen, I spent the last 2 days, maybe it's been 3 now, on the computer. Probably spent a total of a couple hours. I've got, the front door we have, right? That
big
front
one.
door. Yeah, exactly.
Big, heavy dude.
Yeah, it's about, and I think it's a 10-foot tall, and it's about, 5 feet wide, I would guess. And it's mahogany. And now it needs to be refinished. So I've been buying and I've been reading about it. I got to tell you right now, and so that nobody thinks that I think I'm an expert, I know nothing. As Socrates once said, I know that I know nothing. Well, I mean, I know a little something. Not as much Socrates, obviously, but I know enough to know that I need help. So I've been reading all this stuff, and so I'm looking, basically, it's set up to where you want to put a finish on it that you probably would put on a wooden boat, basically, because it gets the same kind of treatment.
Weather.
It's exposed to the weather, exactly. You got warm on the inside, cold on the outside. Wood moves around a lot, and so you got to do the right thing and get that door sealed up because it's getting a little chalky in the front. That's pretty, and probably should have been done last year. But anyway, so you think? So I found the varnish that I want to use, and I found the method that I want to apply. There's going to probably a total of 4 coats altogether, sand in between the coats. But now, you won't believe this, Todd, from what I've read, and I'm sure there's, like I said, I'm a neophyte, but I'm one of those guys that got to do it by the book.
You're the optimizer.
Yeah, I am an optimizer, which probably is not good really, in the overall picture.
I respect it.
But then again, my wife is just the opposite. She just goes in and gets, I need this, give me that, gets on Amazon or whatever that website is and buys, I'm going, jeez.
You're not even researching this.
Exactly. Just frustrating as hell. But at the same time, you get something, and, with me, it could take 6 months to a year before I actually pull the trigger.
Technology's changed 3 times.
I don't know which way to go, because we were just talking about this, because, you can go ahead and pull the trigger, but as soon as you pull the trigger, 3 weeks later, that's antiquated. That's, it's like, get rid of it. Where did I hear that sign? Get rid of it. I think that's the guy that sells My Pillow. Big Mike. Okay, look at this pillow. Oh, get rid of it. Anyway, I am getting all over the place here. Back to what I was looking for. So, I'm getting ready to revarnish this door. I got to do some sand, and this probably isn't the optimum time, although it'll be all right. I got to build a whole partition out in front so that, it's not exposed to the outside weather.
Right.
And dust and all that stuff, so that's going to be kind of a trick. But I've got it in my mind. I've got it figured out. Todd, do you realize, in everything I read, if you're going to apply varnish, you need basically a white china bristle brush. White china bristle.
Nope, did not know that.
Now, you probably use black china bristle. There is a difference, believe it or not. I don't know what it is, but you can buy
We're gonna
one
find
of these.
out.
Do you realize for the last 3 days I've been looking from? I mean, I used to have some nice paintbrushes. Purdy was a company that they still make paintbrushes, and one of the big box stores. They used to carry Purdy brushes. They don't now. They have Wooster brushes. And I looked in a hardware where they have, a really, what I would consider very good hardware over around Bethesda in that area. And I looked at their brushes. There was not one pure China bristle brush in the whole. And the same thing at the big box store.
There's a shortage of everything, Riggo.
Not that. I don't think they even bother carrying them because nuts like me don't come in and ask
It's on a
for 'em.
boat. It's on a boat hanging
I don't
out of
think
in the
it is.
ports in L.A.
I disagree. I don't think this is one of those issues. I think it is that so few people use these things. People are willing to buy what sellers are going to sell you. So in other words,
Supply and demand.
This is a more expensive brush.
Not a lot of demand.
Exactly. That's exactly what I think it is. That the average guy is going to go in there and give me, give me that nylon brush. That's what the hell? Who cares? And they're done with it. This is my front door, Todd. This is basically like my big toothy grin.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, that's what you
It's
see.
the
coming.
grand entrance.
Exactly.
It's a very impressive door.
It's first impression.
It reminds me of like the Wizard of Oz, and you go into the academy, and you open the door, and there's Riggo and the wizard. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It is beautiful.
So, I mean, that's why, and plus I've never done it. And let me say this, from all accounts, it's probably going to be all botched up by the time I'm done with it. It's going to have
Wrong
drips and runs
goddamn
and all this
bristles.
stuff, bristled hairs that are still stuck in it. And I'm going to have to hire a professional to come out and make it right, which is really going to pain the hell out of me. But I'm going to give it my best shot. So that's why I've been online for 3 or 4 hours looking. You can't find these brushes anywhere. I don't know what the deal is. Now, I went so far as that I'm looking at Italian brushes. I got a brush. I think I got the thing all laid out. But unfortunately, the brush has got to be shipped from England, right?
Oh, my.
Guess what? I get all the way through, put in my address, put in my name, getting ready to put in the credit card, and all it says, oh, excuse us.
$40?
No, the brush I'm looking at was like $50.
Well, because shipping.
No, we didn't get to that. Didn't get that far because we get the little, what do you call it? The
Checkout?
Yeah, but they give you a little heads up, like, because of the COVID virus, we're not able to export anything from here. So we're sorry for any inconvenience. I'm going, you dumbasses, you made me go through all of this bullshit. Why didn't you tell me up front? If you don't live in England, you ain't getting one of these paintbrushes.
Stupid yank.
So here I am. I'm cast adrift to sea trying to figure out where I buy one of these. I mean, I got nice paintbrushes, but they're artificial. You know what I said? They're like, they got Chinex. There's what they call badger hair brushes, but it's like badger-like hair. You know what that is? That's like going to a sushi restaurant and ordering the crab. It's crab-like. It's not, or when you order, like Velveeta, it's called cheese food. It's not cheese. It's cheese, which means it may have cheese in it.
Very little.
Not 100%.
Very little. Maybe 1%.
Yeah. So anyway, that is it. So,
wow, you've been.
I got problems.
You've been busy.
Yeah, I got problems.
So and I got to imagine.
I ordered all the varnish and all that stuff's coming. So I got that on the way.
But weather's going to come into play too, aren't you? On a kind of a little deadline from a weather perspective.
Well, yes and no. See, if I build the partition, what do I say? When I get that done, I'll be able to actually paint, do the door, and leave it and let it dry or whatever, and then it won't. I mean, I'll have to leave the door open, obviously, and that's where you got to kind of. Hoping that the critters don't go. Hey.
It's not like you're in the middle of a national park or forest or overlooking.
Exactly. You're right on to it because it's not exactly like I'm putting a jail cell door in front of it to keep, where it's got, with a fine mesh, with a mesh screen to keep things out of there. So I'm wondering, like you said, Rocky might go.
Rocky the raccoon might make his move.
What is that? It smells like bacon grease. I think I'll go have a look-see. Come down there.
Stay tuned.
Come down at 5 o'clock in the morning. There's Rocky. Hey, what the hell you doing down there?
Rocky's all fat and happy smoking a cig.
Exactly.
I knew I'd get him one day.
He's got the wife and kids in there with him. Like, God damn, Rocky, get out of here. Okay.
Well, we're going to need an update as the varnish turns or as the varnish goes on.
I'll keep you posted.
All right. So speaking of, we're going to give you the unvarnished truth on the Washington football team. On the Washington football team, and probably by miles their most complete game that we've seen in quite some time.
Look, you and I texted back and forth. We can't show all the text or talk about all the text that we had back and forth between us. But I remember in the very beginning, I said, well, don't get your hopes up, because they were playing well in the very beginning. Tampa Bay was stumbling all over the field. And I'm going, well, they're still going to lose. I think that was one of the texts. I said,
it was.
Don't
We've seen this. We've seen this.
Yeah, I'm going, I ain't getting sucked into this. I just had another thought that somebody that did get sucked.
Okay.
We can save that for later.
Yeah, we'll save that for later.
That's only
Let's just say, rule number one. Never.
I think when you got that text, you felt a little better.
Yeah, I did. I was like, there you're telling me I got a little shot here.
Riggo's telling me it's okay.
Never.
And as the game went on, you just kept going until finally I said, Tampa's done. I know that was back in the middle of the fourth quarter. I said, they're done. They're done. So several things. The defense really set the tone for this game. And I think, finally, Jack Del Rio's finally got a little color back in his face, because he was looking pretty ashen for about the last 3 weeks. I noticed, but now he's got the nice.
He's got a little color.
Yeah, he's looking good. But they did a heck of a job. I think actually, if you want to look at a play, now this is just me, and I have no idea, but I kind of got a feel, at least I think I did, for Tom Brady. I think I said this last week. I did say it last week. I said Tom Brady's a front runner. Doesn't mean he can't bring you from behind. Absolutely can. But he's a front runner when it comes back down to pressure. If you put pressure on him, he's not Tom Brady anymore.
Pressure from the defense, getting in his face, banging him around.
Exactly.
Not pressure like he shrinks under pressure. It's the defensive pressure.
Yeah, it's like
getting his
physical.
Face. Right.
It's a manhood issue.
Yes.
Not that
he's always been that guy. He does not like getting hit.
You don't hear many people talk about that. You don't hear many people bring that up.
Well, because it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, exactly right. But I'm going to tell you what, Jonathan Allen, that hit early on.
Oh, yeah.
I got to believe that all of a sudden Tommy went,
You did.
You got to start putting the radar up now. I think that was something that completely changed the complexion of the game.
It was first or second series, I believe.
Mm-hmm. And so that was a big turnaround because you got into his head. That's my belief. I mean, who knows? Maybe he was like, oh, shit, I've got better.
No, it seemed like it, John. It really did. And that was early. Jonathan Allen, that kid is having a hell of a season.
Yeah, he is. I mean, what's his name? Mark Schlereth, the guy that used to play here. You say he's one of the most underrated players in the NFL. I don't know.
Stink was on the broadcast crew.
Right. He watched a lot more NFL games than I do, so I would take his word for it. But, yeah, I think that Jonathan Allen's hit was maybe one of the catalysts to start the game, really starting to turn the game back towards Washington. And then the other guy, you got to give it to him, Heineke. I mean, he was,
my goodness,
he was just flawless. And when they had him, when you thought that they had him going to get sacked, that guy got out of trouble and made a play.
Big moments when they needed him too. That was his by far and away most complete game.
But here's the weird part about that, and this is where that was a huge win. Not because you necessarily, and I'm not sold on anything at this point, because they beat the world champions. Tampa Bay's got its own issues, right? Because they were beat 2 weeks before that. They got beat by New Orleans. So they got their own issues. And Washington may have kind of just pointed out a few more of them to everybody else who's getting ready to play Tampa, and Tampa's season may fall apart. Who's to say? But the thing here is as well as Washington played, and they did, now if they're really starting to turn a corner, what you look for now is what are they going to do this week against Carolina?
100.
Huge game, if you ask me. This is where a team makes it or breaks it. They lose to Carolina, the momentum you get from beating the world champions and playing as well as you did, it just goes away and you got to start over. When you build, it's like you got the foundation laid down, and next thing you get a big storm and washes it away, whatever, and now we got to start back from zero, guys. And a lot of guys, they lose their focus, and next thing you go, thanks. So my guess is that, and before I get real excited, say, yeah, I think maybe they finally got something going on. And the other thing I wanted to say, Heineke is clearly the key to a lot of this stuff. And the defense got to keep playing like it is. But the weird thing, the irony is, the last time you saw Heineke play like this was a year ago playing against Tampa Bay at FedEx Field.
Right.
Was it something about having one of his former teammates that happens to be the most celebrated quarterback in NFL history? Is it something about having him on the field and Taylor takes his game up to a level that nobody recognizes? I mean, that's the guy who I think has got a lot of pressure on him this week, because he's got to come out the same way he did on Sunday and play the same way. If he can play like that, I'm going to tell you, they've got some playmakers, and they're doing enough, and he's doing where he doesn't get all the protection that he needs. He's agile enough and fleet of foot enough. He can run around and make some stuff happen. And as long as he doesn't lose his head, and that's, and get to the point where, and I don't see how he could be, where you get into that Patrick Mahomes mode where I can just throw anything out here because I'm Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
I mean, he's a long way from being that. But at the same time, he's shown a time or two that he can get a little scatterbrained.
Big time.
And so, but he was anything but that on Sunday.
There's no question.
He was throwing darts.
Well, they as a team, and he in particular, they've not put back-to-back games together. And when you've only won 2 games leading into this one, they have not put it together.
No.
So, and clearly, this is a tall order in Carolina because.
But they're coming here, right?
No, it's at Carolina.
Oh, it's at Carolina.
It's at Carolina. So all the different storylines going into this one. First off, Carolina, I believe that's Carolina's 5-5, and they are very much in the playoff hunt.
Yeah.
So you got Ron Rivera, you got the whole storyline. He goes back home. You got Cam Newton, who they just signed, and he played had 2 touchdowns. And he
scored 2 touchdowns?
Yeah, he ran 1 and threw for 1.
But he only played. When did he get in the game? Late in the game?
So no, it was interesting because he didn't start.
No, and the other guy threw 20-some passes. He only threw 8 or 9, I think.
Right, and so they basically used him inside the red zone. But now he's going to start. And
he is.
He's getting all the first team reps, and so you had Ron Rivera, who passed on him twice. He had 2 opportunities to sign him and bring him here to D.C. Right, first with New England up there. So clearly he wasn't interested in the Cam Newton show.
I'm not either, just for the record. I'm with Coach Ron on this.
Oh yeah, his best days are behind him.
He's another front runner.
Oh, cool. Boy, that might be the understatement of the year.
There's nothing he can really ever do to get past the Super Bowl fumble.
Yeah.
Alligator arm.
Yeah.
I don't do that.
That's true.
Super Bowl. I mean, as a teammate, I don't know how his teammates could look at him after that and go, "Oh, this is our leader here."
Well, and
Theismann would have been all over the damn ball.
Yeah.
He'd have been poking and gouging in the mud and the blood and the beer if you wanted to mess with him.
With his single bar face mask, taking shots in the face.
Exactly. I'm going, no. Hey, Coach, bring in a new quarterback. We can't work with this guy.
So Carolina, they got Christian McCaffrey back last week. He had a super productive.
Yeah.
Now, here's the dirty little secret. I did the research. Carolina's defense is stout. Carolina's defense, number 1 against the pass. Number 2 overall, number 3 in sacks, and 4th in points allowed, only 19 per game. They are legit. Well, and that's why they didn't need the offense to light it up, even though they did have, out in Arizona and what they did. So this is a tall order.
They actually, and maybe, who knows, maybe Washington's on their heels, defensively speaking, but they actually did, I'm pretty sure, what Washington wanted to do this offseason was have that kind of a defense and, try to put some kind of an offense together because you had a few playmakers and hope that Heineke, well, at the time it was Fitzmagic. That was, which, you look at that move and you kind of, to me, regardless of he gotten hurt, I don't think this team would be in the position that it's in right now. I mean, maybe it would, but at least with Heineke, you've got what you can consider a future kind of. With Fitzmagic, if he was, he would be doing the same thing, but he's living on borrowed time, and now he's done. Right,
he's done. Yeah,
his career's over.
Yeah, we believe if anybody's, he's going to be 39.
And
and
those things don't come back real quick.
They don't.
I mean,
even if you were a younger person, not good. But at his age,
it would be negligible at best, I would guess. I mean, Carolina, you look at this football team, and they've got the very defense that you're talking about. As I said, there's going to be a lot of pressure on the offense, a lot of pressure on Heineke to try to put some drive. The one thing they can't do is 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. That'll really discourage your defense. And even as well as they're playing, eventually, one of these teams is going to have to prevail defensively. And that's what I think that's what you're going to see on Sunday. I think you're going to see two teams, because Carolina being as good as they are, they're going to have studied what Heineke did to Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to come up with some kind, hopefully from their perspective, they're going to come up with some kind of solution for that, which means that Washington, there's not going to be a lot of scoring, and they're thinking they can keep points off the board, and then it's a matter of I guess it's not a two-headed quarterback anymore, but they obviously got a guy that had been starting all year. Pretty interesting, too, because in the very beginning, they won a game or two, then they lost a couple, 3 games.
They did, but Darnold got hurt.
Oh, that's right.
And so Darnold got hurt a couple of weeks ago, so this kid came in, which is why they signed Cam.
Mm-hmm. But still, at the beginning, you kind of thought, you kind of thought, well, Carolina, my thinking was you thought perhaps that it was all about New Orleans and Tampa Bay.
No question.
Right? You wrote off Atlanta, you wrote off Carolina. And I got to tell you, if their defense is as good, if they can keep playing, I should say, the way they've been playing and playing at that level, that's a team to be careful of.
No question.
I think so.
Defense.
And that's what I say when it gets back down to actually to Washington, that, this is a great game, really. What Washington did, in a way, last Sunday, they saved their season. Had they lost again and went to, 2-7? That's what they've been. If they went to 2-7, then all of a sudden the struggle really begins, because you'd have to, if you won the last 10, you'd be 10-7, but that's not exactly a stellar record, but it's pretty good, really. But the odds of that happening are probably not that
There's
good.
probably, with the expanded playoffs, there's probably going to be a team that's right around 500 that gets that last wild card position.
Well, there was a team last year that made it that was below 500.
See, there you go. Well, to your point, John, this was the first game that a couple of things. The defense kept Brady off the field with a number of 3 and outs. Mm-hmm. Conversely, Washington hung onto the ball, and it's the first time. There's only a handful of times where a Tom Brady-led team has been under 21 minutes of possession. That's huge, 21 minutes.
So that's almost 1/3. They had the ball 1/3 of the game.
And Washington converted 62% on 3rd and 4th down, which has never happened.
And a lot of that happened in the second half.
Oh my gosh!
Because
and
they were like 50%,
yeah,
or something like that, maybe in the first half, maybe even below 50. But and of course that drive, which was just stunning, really.
Longest drive.
A lot of opportunities. 18 or 19 plays?
I believe 18 plays. I believe it's the longest in 30 years
for Washington.
And remember, that was right after the Mike Evans touchdown, where we're sitting there going, okay, I've seen this act before. Yeah. Here we go. That was incredible. That was a thing of beauty.
And there were numerous times, just as you just pointed out, that you could have very easily punt back, but they kept coming up with it. Now, like I said, they converted every 3rd down on that drive, which must have been 3 or 4 of them.
I think it was.
And they started on what? They're 10 or something. They're 15. I mean,
it was. Let's see. It was let's see. 19 play, 80-yard drive, 5 conversions on 3rd or 4th down.
Yeah. So that's what you go, whoa, that's getting it done.
That's getting it done. All right, what do you think the line is for this Sunday's matchup down in Charlotte?
I'm going to go Carolina -5.
-3.5 is the Wednesday, November 17th.
Well, with that defense and all that stuff, but Washington had a good enough showing that the bookmakers said, well, let's take that in consideration.
Yep, and you did lose, the team is banged up, but all teams are. You remember?
Yeah, right.
Tampa did not have.
It's funny, we waited till now to even mention the fact that Chase Young's done for the season.
Done for the season.
But see, I think that, it's kind of strange in a way, but has he even been a factor this year?
No, not compared, especially compared to his rookie season.
Yeah, I was going to say, because if he were, you'd go, well, it would have been the first thing, basically, you start talking about after winning the game. The first thing you'd go to is,
we lost our superstar.
Exactly, and I didn't even think about it, because really, ultimately, the superstar is still in the line. It's
Jonathan Allen. Yeah, and so you got Montez Sweat, broken jaw, out, so he's on IR.
Is he out indefinitely?
He's out 4 weeks.
Well, you know what? And Collins seems like, I think what Del Rio did with him. I think
More active for sure.
And is putting him in a better position to make plays. And so you're getting, there's kind of feeling their way around defensively. It could be pretty interesting as the season continues. And if Heine can keep doing what he's doing, I'm thinking this team, they could be onto something. I'm very reluctant to go too far. Remember I told you about Whitey Ford, the great pitcher, the lefty for the New York Yankees? Whitey, I remember my older brother Frank, who was a heck of a pitcher himself, and he was a lefty. He was always trying to get that move to first base like Whitey had, because Whitey picked a lot of guys off first base. I don't want to be Whitey Ford. I don't want to be.
Don't be leaning towards second too much there,
I don't
Riggo.
want to be Whitey Forded. I'm turning Ford into a verb.
Well,
be Whitey Forded.
Listen, Antonio Gibson and Terry McLaurin are the real deal. Okay, they're ballers. They can play.
Yeah, and McKissick, he's great to come in on third downs. And then the little guy, the little fire plug they bring in from time to time, he's got a little wiggle to him. Give him a little room.
But for this defense, this is their time to shine, because Carolina offense is not all that. McCaffrey's back. That's huge for them.
Yeah, it is.
And
so he had almost 100 yards on the ground, and then I forget how many catches he had, but he had several of those. I think he accounted for about 130 or 40, 50 of their yards.
Who, McCaffrey?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I think it was a little bit more than that, John. But yeah, he's that guy.
Yeah.
He's their superstar. So one thing we did want to touch upon, we lost a good friend.
Yeah.
To both of us, and I know you in particular, with Sam Huff's passing last week. I got the news on Saturday, and I was very fortunate early in my career. Well, this was 30 years ago at WTEM, and we had just gotten the broadcast rights from WMAL that had them for, I believe, 40 or 41 years, and that's how we launched the sports radio station. So Redskins had just won the Super Bowl. It's still the biggest deal in this town by miles.
Yeah.
And so my first job as executive producer over there was to oversee the Washington Redskins radio network. So I got to work with Sonny, Sam, and Frank and talk about like a dream come true for me being native, having grown up listening to them, and what an honor and a privilege it was. And to travel with them and share meals with them and hear their stories and pick their brains. And Sam, boy, and I tell people, Sam, it didn't matter what age he was, he'd get a look in his eye, and I call it the crazed linebacker look. And you better watch out, because he would still.
You know what he was up to? It was in Chicago, wasn't it? Where he got into a tete-a-tete with a fan up there.
Yeah, this will. So I confirmed this with a couple of guys that are part of the broadcast, and this could have been, let's see, we're 2022. This might have been.
Wasn't that long ago?
Yeah, it's like maybe 2013, 14, in that range. And Soldier Field, and where the visiting team's broadcast booth is, it's kind of along a concourse there, and it's different because it's not up in a press box, and it's open air. And the last row of seats abuts next to the broadcast position, and it's cold Soldier Field, and two guys have their hats on, and they're hooping and hollering for the entire first half. They're standing up, and every time they stand up, Sam can't see the game. He can't see the broadcast. So this goes on, and at halftime, Sam taps a guy on the shoulder, and he goes, "Hey, listen, I'm doing the broadcast back here, and I can't. If you keep standing up and you with your hat, and you and your fella, I'm going to need you guys to sit down." Well, Mr. Chicago Bear fan wasn't having it, and tells Sam to F off. And Sam's like, "What'd you say to me?" Sam stands up, and the guy goes.
So Sam would have had to have been my age, maybe, or a little bit older, in his early mid-70s.
Oh, he definitely. Yeah, he was in his 70s.
Yeah,
he was in his 70s, and the guy goes. He goes, shut the fuck up, old man. I'll beat you. And the guy goes, "You know what? I'm a former Marine. I've killed people." And he shows him his Marine ring like this. And Sam goes, "Oh, yeah? I'm in the Hall of Fame, and I kill people, too." Sam takes a swing at the guy. Misses him wildly, but all hell breaks loose. Now they're throwing beer. Sonny's in the booth like this going, "Oh, yeah. Sam, here we go again, Sam." So finally, security has to show up. They arrested 2 guys. They threw them out.
Yeah,
but the
Sam
rest of the game, people are in Sam's face and talking trash to him, whatever. One of a kind, and really a great gentleman too. For all the crazy stories, but he'd get that little linebacker mentality, and it was
he
on.
Definitely had it. Just for the record, Sam, I think, I don't want to say single-handedly, but had a lot to do with saving Charlestown Racetrack.
Oh, yes.
He was really big. I mean, he was very, he used to work for Marriott. I mean, and I think Sam was one of the guys that actually was the guy that I don't know if they had a deal with the NFL and Marriott, but if they did, Sam brokered that deal.
He created that program.
Yeah, exactly. We always stayed in it.
Right. Remember, we used to have, so Sam being a VP at Marriott, and they were struggling, and they, especially on the weekends. So Sam said, hey, college football teams, professional football teams, that's all they do in the weekend. And I remember we had these special cards, and it was the Marriott Sports VIP Club or whatever. So that's why all the teams started taking their business there. He actually created it.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is when I was, how old would I have been? And I can't remember. I'd have been about 12, maybe 10, 12, 13 years old. And you would have just been born, so you don't recall this in real time. But there was, I forget, I guess it was CBS, maybe. It might have been Walter Cronkite.
It was CBS.
When he used to do, he had, it was brought to you by Prudential or whatever,
Yes.
I think it was, on Sundays. But it was the violent world of Sam Huff. And we had, fortunately for us, we got Channel 13 out at WIBW out at Topeka, and it was CBS. If it had been NBC, I'd never seen it, or ABC. Wouldn't have happened. But the violent world of Sam Huff, and they had him all mic'd up. Now you can imagine, you're 12 years old back in the well, it wasn't really nation at that point, but the league was only about 25 years old back then, maybe 30. So you think about, there's been 50 Super Bowls, and so you know that things were just happening, and the sound that they had, with him hitting people, and it was just so, it was bigger than life, and it was all about, and me and my friends, it was always about Sam Huff, and just, just this guy was a monster. He was a killer. Everything that Sam thought he was, too. So, I mean, we were playing right into Sam's character for sure. But then I got to meet Sam, and, you realize that everything you said is true. He was really just a fun guy. He was always going for the laugh for the most part. But you could only go so far, like the guy in Chicago found out, and Sam turned back into a linebacker.
Yeah.
He was like, Sam down deep was a junkyard dog.
Oh, man.
He was housebroken, he was a good boy, and he was like, good boy, Sam, and then, Sam, you walk in, he didn't like what you look like. Sam, it was all off. We're going to start over here.
He did it, Don and Mike. Don and Mike, the famous.
Did they take a little swipe at him?
Oh, yeah. They were calling him stupid and making fun of him on the air one day, and they all happened to be on the same airplane together. And Sam found out that they were on the airplane there.
He made it a point.
Sam went up to both of them and grabbed them around the neck, and he said, you can call me a lot of things, but don't you ever call me stupid. And put the fear of God in them and got their attention. But
you're singing a different tune.
You're right about a big horseman, and he was, I believe, the co-creator or creator of the West Virginia Breeders' Cup.
Yeah,
and he was instrumental in saving racing in West Virginia and Charlestown in particular.
It's pretty interesting too, and Sam obviously had a lot going on besides his ability on a football field, because I remember, I think Sam called me. I had some property outside of Leesburg, and he was involved with the hunt, the hunt club.
Yes.
He had something going on with that, which obviously is horses again. But Sam was a busy guy. I think he had a lot of friends. He certainly made a lot of acquaintances. I think Sam really was one of the best, which you wouldn't think of, but folks that go around shaking hands and smiling. What do you call them? What do you call that when you're
an ambassador?
Well, an ambassador, but they all when you are trying to get somebody to, you're schmoozing, you're also
big networker.
A networker. Sam was a hell of a networker.
Oh, he knew everybody.
He had a lot of stuff going on.
He knew everybody, and everybody knew him and loved him, and man, he had a great run, and it's we forget. Back when he was he? I believe he was a player coach when Lombardi was here, right? That's why Vince wanted him.
I think he retired, and when Lombardi took the job here, I think I read it in his obit that Lombardi convinced him to come back as a player coach because he did play. 1970, I think, was his last year.
Yeah, I believe that's right.
But then it would have been, I don't know if he played 69 because that was Lombardi's first and only year because then he died between 69 and 70, I think, right before the season started. Don't quote me on that, though, because my history's a little rough.
Well, Sam was one hell of a guy and one of a kind,
Yes.
and he will be sorely missed.
Yeah, his breed is, I don't know. Yeah, his breed's a dying breed, let's face it. From the coal mines of West Virginia. Go figure. Good for Sam. Anyway, that's it for us today. Riggo out.